What is up, everybody? We are here for episode 4 of the Commentator's Curse. Surprisingly, we made it 4 weeks in a row. How are you, Crimson Blur?
I am fantastic. I am taking some advice that I got through Twitter by a homie who told me that if I put my headphones into my ear, it'll make my mic sound better. So I'm trying something new.
Awesome. That person gave like 5 pieces of advice, so I'm trying to take notes on it. Still, there's some technical issues that I need to fix. How are you doing?
I'm good, but it appears your cam is frozen. So
Yeah, it's gonna eventually adjust itself.
oh, does it take time? That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, I'm doing good, man. I had a good weekend. We had a day off, which is nice. Had family over, and currently the NBA Finals are playing, so I just watched like the first half before coming down, and it's pretty sick.
So I had a thought about this. One of the people on the stream told me he didn't want to hear any spoilers, right? And what do you think the etiquette is on spoilers? Like, at what point in time do you just say, like, screw it, this should be common knowledge and it's your fault for not knowing the results?
Spoilers about what? About Melee?
Okay, let's say you watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Like, at what point is it socially acceptable that you can talk about the episode in public?
I don't think you can. I think
Like,
Game of Thrones is a serialized show that I think even like 20 years from now, I wouldn't like be like, hey, on season 3, episode 7, this happened, and then because then someone could watch the show later, right? Or like you never know, like 'cause, like you don't. I just think it's bad etiquette to spoil a video game or anything like that because people play them after they come out. They don't. They're not just things that last like that month or that year, right?
yeah.
So I think never. It depends on what it is. Sports, I think you can spoil it immediately after. Um, and I'm the kind of guy who watches almost all of my sports in VOD, and I hate it, but I have to because I don't have a way of like making my life work around a sports schedule. So even having said that, I think it's just socially like sports are only valuable in VOD in live. Like that's just like how it is socially. So I think that's okay.
Do you want to hear the story of how we watched Game of Thrones last weekend?
How did you watch Game of Thrones last weekend?
Okay, so we were at Kevin's son, aka Pocky D's 30th birthday in the cabins. Like, I forget the area, but somewhere deep NorCal. And the TVs are CRTs to your liking.
Really
And we
nice.
had,
That's good. You watched it on a
unfortunately,
CRT?
no, we couldn't do that because we only have our laptops. And there's no HDMI port and there's no VGA port that we can hook up to. So we had to experiment, and of course, if we don't watch Game of Thrones right away, like we have to avoid the internet at all costs because you don't know what's lurking on the internet. You don't know what, like, if you just turn on your Twitter, if somebody's gonna spoil something, or go like, oh my gosh. And so we had to make it work, or else we were gonna effectively block ourselves from going on the internet. So we turned it on. We had this dingy, like, 17-inch laptop with like no sound, and we're just trying to make it work. And and then because the audio sucks, because it's just computer speakers for the 12 of us, by the way, we ended up getting a bowl with one of those like portable speakers and synced it to the laptop and put it in the back, and that's how we watched it.
A bowl?
We put the audio on a bowl, like on a
Oh
speaker,
yeah, no, that's smart. That's smart. That's knowing how audio works. That's some physics stuff.
and we all hunched around a 17-inch monitor, all 12 of us in a very dark room.
Dude, the day I learned that, so how like if you have an iPhone and if you're like playing music and you don't have headphones on, or if you're playing something, it's so hard to hear because of the phone. And the day I learned that if you just cup the bottom of your phone, like where the speaker is, it's like it becomes like a loudspeaker all of a sudden. That changed my whole life.
It's a game changer, man.
I don't know if anyone knows that, but like I see people play music on their phone without doing that, just like cupping the bottom. It drives me insane. I'm like, it's like twice as loud if you do it the other way.
Apparently, it's like physics with waves and all that fun
Yeah, like
jazz.
it reverberates, man.
So should we talk some Melee?
Absolutely.
We didn't really have much last weekend.
No, we did not. But the thing is I still think there's a lot to talk about in the sense that we got a lot of questions through the Ask FM. So I think this is a good fan episode we could do, where we discuss some of the major topics. A bunch of news dropped in the meantime. A couple players got signed. A few pieces of drama here and there. So there's that going on. I think we should cover the results that did happen, of course, because that's
what did happen. I don't even know if there was like a decent event or like an event that was like large.
There was Breaker, right? That was something. Duck won expectedly. Like, you're right. There's just.
Let's just run through the events. We could do it really quick. Duck won.
Duck won.
That's pretty cool.
That's if he didn't win, it'd be interesting. Otherwise, it's like he's the only top player there. What do you expect? It was like, what was it? Duck versus Dreffen? Was that the final? I don't remember.
It was like Duck, Kells,
Kells was there. Yeah, there's Kells, bro, Esam, Duck. That's it's a Midwest glorified local, right? That's what it is.
So,
which it shouldn't be based on the production value that we saw. Breaker looked actually really good.
Yeah.
So.
And Juggle Guy, raved about it. Seems like him, Jabali, and Hado are like the TO Illuminati that are going to take over the world in like 3 years.
Yeah, man, they're working together. That's what I like to see. I like when TOs work together. That's always been my thing. Is that I think the biggest weakness in the FGC and Smash is when everyone's off in their little corners trying to improve their region or their tournament series or their organization, and none of us are working together when we all have so much to gain by working together and so little to lose, right? So when guys like that, guys who are qualified and smart, work together, that's when good things happen. So, yeah, absolutely.
And I think Irvine had a pretty decent local. Santi ended up defeating West Bulls in 2 grand final set to take it at Sheik versus Falco.
Did you see the combo he did?
On FD?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was pretty sick. The down tilt, I wouldn't have thought of it.
Holy moly. And the jump cancel up smash then. Ooh. So that was sick. Did you say Santi won it though?
Yeah, Santi won the event.
Holy dude, that guy's crazy good.
He ended up losing to Kira, I believe, in like winners semis and then brought it back in losers.
That's freaking crazy, bro.
Those Irvine events are actually like really hard to like win. Even though it's like 20 people, I would probably not make. It would be a difficult trend for me to make top 5 in that or top 6.
Yeah, they're good. I think it's good that SoCal has more weekday events, right? Was it a weekday event, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's good because of course, its weekends are packed with Mayhem and SSS, but a weekday event's good for SoCal. That's like more well produced. I've been thinking about that would have been good for SoCal for a while. It's good that Irvine's stepping up. It's a region that it has always been really active in that sense. So super sick.
And I can't think of anything else. I mean, CEO Prologue happened, and I believe Club beat Kobo in grand finals. Gatsu was at the event, but
yeah,
Club and Kobo, I feel like they play at least twice a week.
Yeah, and internationally, I didn't hear about it much either. Was there anything going on in Europe or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. Right? Like, so that we just covered pretty much everything, and I know Smash fans, you go to this show to get in-depth results analysis and like in-depth, for us to tell you how to follow the scene and stuff. Honest truth is that, as I've been saying for a long time, the scene is still pretty underserved and undersaturated. So we do have weekends like this where it's interesting. I don't think it's wrong, but we're basically we just listed off 3 locals, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a local, and I think it's fun to watch regional and local results. But there isn't a path there necessarily, and since they're so frequent, it gets it gets a little repetitive. You know that Duck's the best player in the Midwest. We know that already. So there's not much analysis you can do about it, frankly.
I mean, I didn't really. I mean, I think this is like we're just to kind of shoot the breeze, right? I mean, we've lightly alluded to this, right? It's a week off, and what was the discussion of the day?
I mean, I don't know why I'm the only one on this island because you and me seem to disagree on this, based on your recent tweets. But
So no, okay, let me clarify my stance.
yeah,
So I think players could do. So there's two things that like two phases of a top player, right? That I think of. The recovery time between events and when you're at the event.
Yeah.
And I think where the player's responsibility comes in is to do a better job fixing the outside of event stuff so that they're better prepared for the next event. And what I mean by that is like eating well, getting back into a healthy state of mind, sleeping at normal hours and doing commutes that make sense where you're not sleeping at like 4 a.m. at somebody's house every night.
right.
But at events, I think my issue is that like a player can survive and play, 14-hour days where, they get up, they get bombarded by fans as soon as they hit the venue, they play round one pools, then they play doubles, they get bombarded by more fans, they try to practice for round two pools, and then they have an exhibition at the end of the day, which like usually is like 12 to 14 hours if you really think about it at certain events. And I think like for me, like I know a top player can survive, but I don't think it creates an environment where we get the best quality product on from the Twitch stream standpoint. In a sense that you put them in conditions like that, are they going to play their best?
Okay, so let's break down every little point in that. I think when you talk about, hey, they get bombarded by fans, blah blah blah. I mean, you and me know that as well. Like the commentators and personalities in the scene also get some of that, so we understand that it can be a little bit difficult to walk through the maw of the tournament, because just how many signatures you have to do. We all enjoy it and we love talking to fans, but when you're just trying to get someplace, it's like it's a little bit hard, right? I think that having said that, there are solutions around that have already been cropping up almost everywhere. Now, there's some events that still haven't caught on. Like I think Gommel is an example of an event that hasn't done it. But basically, you just have a freaking backroom area where the players can practice in silence and get ready for the event. You just have a VIP lounge. It's obvious. Most events have gradually been doing it over the last year. And it helps, and there's really no negative for anybody.
So you've been to these events before, or you working at Twitch, you're the Smash guy. Are most events doing this now? Because my impression is G3 had it,
G3
Big
had
House
it.
kind of did, but not really.
I'd say Big House had it. Had it backstage.
Did they? I mean, was it behind the commentators, behind the curtains, or is there another area?
I'm talking about the behind the curtain. I mean, that's still like
I don't really count that.
there was
though.
like, why not? I mean, no one, the dude, fans do not go back behind the curtain. They don't.
Okay, fine. Well,
They don't.
I'll count that as like 3/4.
And then Battle of Five Gods had it. Of course, Summit was closed off. Gommel didn't have it, but that's like I just listed a ton of events. That's a lot of events which already started doing it. And look, we're not talking about doing VIP lounges to like block fans off from players, and make it all so separate. It's more like sometimes, especially after you lose a set, you need a little bit of time to cool off. You need a place to be alone. And for these guys, they literally can't go to the bathroom and be alone, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of considerate fans out there who are very nice, and we all love you guys. We love you guys in general. But there's guys who don't know. Like maybe they didn't watch the set and they don't realize that Leffen's probably pissed off right now, And so it's hard to find those boundaries. And players, when they have a sanctuary zone, they can, make those boundaries for themselves really easily. So that's all it's really about. So yeah, like I think that's the solution to that. So that's one solution we just talked about. Also, I think having dedicated signing sessions can make it better for the fans, make it better fan experience. I also want to have photo booths more commonly at events. I think when SmashCon did it was successful for like with a real backdrop or like real and there's really good sponsor integration you can do with that, by the way, where you have a photo booth with social exposure and a sponsor, it automatically tweets out and has the sponsor logos on it. I'm already thinking ahead, but I like that. I like signing sessions, panels if you want to have them to get like really more exposure. I think all of that does a lot more than what we have right now, and that goes to solving that problem. Now, in terms of during the weekend, it can be exhausting to play so many games. I think there's a valid point in that. I think that one day we're going to have to start thinking about tiered tournament systems. The tier tournament systems are frankly superior to me. I don't mean superior just because it makes the top player experience better. I think it makes the low-level tournament experience better as well. That's why everything ever competitively is tiered. You look at regular sports, it's tiered. You look at most esports are tiered as well, except for Smash, right? So, and Smash and Street Fighter. So when you go and play Hearthstone ranked play, when you play ladder on just about any online game, and you get MMR for Dota, you're getting matched against people of similar skill level, and the people even at the low end prefer that because then they feel like they have a more competitive match out of it, right? So let's say you start making tournament formats where, hey, you just started out, it's your first tournament, and now you're a bronze level player. You start earning your way up, and now you're a silver level player. And each of these tournaments, it's still a ranked system. So like if you win the bronze, if you qualify out of the bronze division, you make it into silver, and then you make it into gold, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You keep building on that. It gives players goals. So if you're a new player, it's not just I would like to go 1-2 instead of 0-2. It's hey, I have a bunch of similarly ranked players as me. I know I can beat these guys because they're not that good, and I want to like basically improve myself and from my class, right? I want to be better than my class. It gives you a goal as a player. By the end of the year, I want to be gold. By the end of this quarter, in the next couple months, I want to get silver. Whatever. That's the kind of stuff I think would solve that problem, and we'd have the floating of the brackets for the higher level players, which also improves our content because then you could start playing, let's say, platinum level matches immediately on stream. Like these are ideas that help solve these problems, right? So all these are good ideas. But I think that the thing I have a problem with, right, that is being repeated, and I think is a notion that's harmful for the community by and large, is the idea that we're burnt out because there's so many events. There's too. What calendar is everyone else looking at? What directory on Twitch is everyone else looking at? We are underserving our market.
Yeah.
Smash viewers want more. It's like every statistic, every indication has indicated that, right? Like we go from having 70K people, and then for a month we're now gonna have like our directory is gonna have less than 5K at any given time, right? There's literally never going to be a point from now until CEO where we have a stream that hits over 10K, unless maybe SSS hits it, right? Literally, like think about that. Like that's mind blowing when you think about that.
So
what sport or esport can you think of that's like that? Especially one that's like we're at this point arguably a top 5 esport, and we are underserving in terms of content that badly. We don't have if anything, we don't have enough events. That's the truth. That's why we see so much more social engagement in Smash. That's why our Twitters are huge. That's why we get a lot of favorites and retweets. That's why our articles get a lot of views comparative to other esports, because they want content and they'll read it if they have to, because it's not actually happening live or anything else. It's also why our VODs are bigger. Why, like, go through VG Bootcamp one day, or go through YouTube one day, go through Twitch VODs one day, and look at the view counts and compare it to other esports. It's amazing. It's incredible, right? Why is it so big? Why is Smash so big on that content? It's because people still want to watch Smash, but it's not live, and it's if you go on the directory, there's nothing happening, so they'll watch old stuff, right? They'll get their content elsewhere, and we're very underserved, and I have no idea how we can take that notion and take of these other extraneous problems of burnout, which I agree with, and I can see how we can solve those solutions, and then apply it to mean that, hey, we need to scale back the number of tournaments we have, which are really, really small on the grander esports scale.
So that's where we agree, right? And I think that's where it's getting miscommunicated, because I think the question of burnout, it's a really large bucket, and I definitely agree that we don't have enough events, in a sense. Like, we have a 3-week break, and I think that even just like 2 times a month it's definitely not unreasonable. I think I was more talking about like the way that a person has to expend their energy within an event doesn't seem reasonable, is like the point I was getting at.
Sure. I think it's not a problem I think we can fix right now, is the honest truth.
I think so too. I think so too.
There's no fair way of floating people right now, right? We're not going to use MI rank to float people. That's ridiculous. And we're saying that as two of the people who helped make that freaking list, right? It just doesn't get updated enough. It's only yearly. There's a lot of reasons for that, right? There'd have to be another system in place, and besides that, there's honestly bigger fish to fry than this problem. I'm just gonna be real.
Yeah.
So there's these factors, but I think that the other points outside of the floating argument, yeah, we are making progress on it, and it has been noted. Thank you for bringing up the issue, because we're continuing to work on that.
Yeah.
But we have to dispel the idea that we are burnt out because there's too many tournaments, because we're oversaturated, because it's just false. It's wrong. It's incorrect, right? Like, you click Super Smash Brothers Melee on the directory, and it's still so low comparative to what people want it to be, and it's obvious in that, right? There's not enough good content.
I agree.
This is true. There's reasons for that. Like if you're talking about home streamers, obviously it takes more to set up a home stream for us, and games with PC games, they don't even need a capture card. You stream it off your PC, like that helps for home streams. Our locals are still lagging behind in terms of production value. There's very few locals who actually put time and effort into production and storylining, like SSS Mayhem, Foundry, or Xanadu do. More of them need to put that kind of attention into it. Our majors, are few and far between when everyone's together. But when they're there, they do very well. They all have room for improvement, but when they go offline, our directory drops off. Our EU hours are still really weak. So, sure, we're all right from 5 to 10 p.m. PST, but after that point, we can lose out on the content war. So, like, there's a lot of reasons, right, and a lot of things we can improve upon. But the worst thing we can do is, especially, and players have influence too, so it does matter what they say, is to change the dialogue to something that's unproductive, and it just is misrepresenting where we are as a community.
Right, and that's fair. So I think, at the end of the day, I think I wish Leffen didn't mention floating. I think that kind of like stirred up a needed thing, and I don't even think Leffen's main point was the floating thing. It was just that, like, if you're expecting me to do this, this, and this, then there needs to be some compromises, is basically what the gist of his argument was.
Yeah. And I get it. Like, one good thing that we've done now in the last year is we've added prize pools to exhibitions, right? That's something I was really adamant on for a while now. I think that you have pro players, you should, and you want to say, hey, enter this event, enter that event. Well, we put a prize pool of singles for a reason. We're saying we value their time, and we're putting prizing on, right?
Yeah.
I think there are some events that can prove exceptions to that. Like, I don't expect Smash the Record to have a great prize. It's a freaking charity event, but on the whole, you shouldn't, as an organizer, you should know that when you give tell a pro player you should do this, you should incentivize them. That's just how it works, right? And I think that helps it a little bit, right? It's not like they're doing these exhibitions for nothing. They're literally getting paid to participate. That's the point. But like on the whole, at the moment, I look at, let's say, a Counter-Strike player's life, right? And they have their E-League groups today. They do scrims tonight. They then will spend the next week, they'll do E-League groups this week. Next week will be ECS groups. They have ESL Pro League they have to play in. These are all multi-million-dollar leagues, by the way, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of pressure. They play we're all complaining about, hey, I have to play a bunch of early bracket matches over the course of the next 4 hours when my pool's running, But they play more. They play so much more. They play more games against pros than a Smash Pro plays against noobs,
But
right? They play more games against pros than like total games that the Smash Pro will play on in the year.
When I think most top players would rather have like only a handful of hours per day as opposed to kind of being mentally ready for 14.
No, I think it's true. Like events are long, right? Like you shouldn't expect a top player to be there for that long. But there's formats that we can do that solve that, right? Like I think that one thing we tried at I think we did at PAX Prime that really helped is I tried to make sure the players got to see the convention really well. So for top 32, we actually split it up into two 16-man brackets. And you're like, why would you do that? Just make one top 32 bracket. And that's because you can, when you think of stream considerations, you can basically segment your bracket out and finish parts of the bracket out so that the players can leave, right?
Yeah.
So instead of playing, let's say, all your first round down from first round of top 32 down, and then going to second round of top 32 winners, and then third round, all that, play like a quarter of it, and just let that player go, right? Like let them go, let them do whatever the hell they want. So then that player is now free for that time, right?
Yeah.
And we could think of those sort of optimizations to be like, hey, instead of purely optimizing for time, instead of purely optimizing for efficiency and how to make that bracket as smooth as possible. Okay, let's sacrifice 20 minutes on the pool's time and think about, all right, this is the most efficient way for people who go 0-2 and for people who go out in winners to finish their pool, right? Because then if we think about it like that, we're like, okay, well then those guys are at least relieved of waiting while other matches that are not their own are being played, right? And then we can make it more efficient in that sense. Like people are on call for less time, except for the people who are making out losers of their pool, which you can't really help it. You went to lose. That's your own fault, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many ways we could make things different. I think a mistake a lot of TOs make nowadays is not realizing the power of the double brackets that we've now taken on. We moved on from round robin to double elimination, but we forgot that bracket pools are broken, right? Like, it's really rare now that tournaments go to extreme, late end times. And the reason is because bracket pools are easy as hell to run. Like it's just brain dead easy, especially for a community that's been doing round robin for so long. Like it's just for TOs, it feels like we just flipped on easy mode and it's nothing. So because of that, like you can actually then sacrifice a little bit on time efficiency and make compromises in other places, right?
Yeah. And hopefully, as you say that though, I think the biggest issues I see from the top player perspective is sometimes they run late and the expectation is unclear because some people come later and it pushes back things. It's like, let's say you end at 4 and your next thing's at 6, but like it overlaps and somehow your 6 moves to 5:30 and your previous pool goes to 5, and you're kind of in this weird place where you can't really leave to go eat, and like you're just kind of stuck there in limbo, and at any given moment like one of your events can get called and you can get DQ'd, and on top of that, while you're waiting there, like you can't unwind because you're in public and everybody's hounding you for everything.
Well, absolutely, and these are such easy fixes. Like what you're talking about is, hey, we basically trap players in a room for the whole day in order because of our bracket formats, right? But we don't have to. We can run half of first round, and then run the second round of that half, right? let those players be free after a 5-hour period, and then run the second half of the tournament, right? Later in the day. So then the first half of the tournament only has to be there for 6 hours. The second half of the tournament only has to be there for 6 hours, right? Like, these are solvable problems, right? And it's not, I don't think, again, it has to do with quantity of events. It's just how we're running our events.
Yeah. So I think there's optimizations there, and I think that's probably one of the lower hanging fruits we could do. Given that we don't have an official ranking and floating is probably out of the picture. Because, like, I feel that because 2-day majors, I'm really glad, for example, Big House 5 moved to 3 days because Big House 4, shouts to Rob, I thought it was really difficult to come in at 10 a.m. for my first stuff and then be there at 10 p.m. and play my round 2 pools where, like, I absolutely sucked. Because I've already been there for 12 hours and I was already exhausted. Shouts, if you guys want context, watch the Moon versus Tafo. The Moon is clearly a better player than me, but like I played like utter garbage, and I attribute part of that because that's like the 13th hour at the event. Granted, Moon probably had the same conditions as well. Like, it doesn't make for good melee.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 3 days obviously superior. We all want 3-day majors in general. The reason why it happens less often, well, not less often, but the reason why sometimes it doesn't happen is when you're a TO and already the budgets are so rough as it is, adding one more day to your room booking is a big money difference. And we all know you can run your bracket in 2 days because bracket pools, like I explained, are kind of broken, right? As long as you stretch it a little bit and you make a lot of compromises. As long as you, like Gommel did, play Wii U top 8 at the same time as Melee top 8, then yes, you can actually run a major in 2 days. You legitimately can. But from my perspective, you shouldn't want to. But when the budget's tight, sometimes it's either you do the event and you lose extreme amounts of money, or you don't, right? Or you make it 2 days and you don't lose money, right? Like, and that's a very obvious decision for anyone who's participating. So, yeah, and 3 days if we can make it happen. 2 days, it's just naturally going to be more stressful for everybody. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. And so I think fundamentally, what it really comes down to is this is kind of a consequence of A, we're getting larger, and B, 2-day events, you're going to have to compromise somewhere. And this is where I think people are like Leffen are realizing, hey, like, this sucks. And I'm going to, talk from my perspective about this. Either something's going to happen or I'm going to refuse interaction with my fans because I can't do that and play well.
So I want to answer a question in the chat first, and I want to get to your point. Pierre Kevin says they only do exhibitions on the first day. The extra day doesn't actually help the player. See, they do the exhibitions on stream, but they do pools at the same time. So what ends up happening is day 2 is pretty much just top 32, or like basically the second part of the 3. Like, if you think of tournaments as 3 phases, first phase is pools, second phase is like top 64, top 32, like basically the intermediary step, and then the third phase is the finals. Then you can split that up, whereas in the other version, you'd be playing pools all day, and you'd be playing that second phase, the top 32, top 64, half on the first day, half on the second day, and that could be really stressful for people. But I want to get to your point. You were talking about how, hey, okay, from his perspective, Leffen is making this point. And I think that's what's really important. I forget where this phrase or this idea comes from, but Leffen's just speaking from his own experience, right? And I don't think he ended up hitting the specifics and the changes that need to be made correctly, but he got the feeling right?
Yeah.
And I think the phrase is the customer always gets the feeling right. Like,
yeah,
they'll very often be wrong about how it should be fixed or what the core problems are, or they don't know the mechanics of tournament hosting well enough in this case to know why those problems exist and like blah blah blah. But he's got the feeling right, and the feeling is right that so many optimizations aren't being made, and that's making his tournament experience harder. And now he's being subjected to this and that problem that he shouldn't have to deal with. And I agree with him on that front. So all those are correct, right? And I think that he absolutely has a point on on that front at the very least. So,
Do we have any other comments in the chat as well?
Feel like MLG 2014 had something special. They streamed consistent high-level melee, which everyone enjoyed, and they technically floated all the top players. So they had in MLG Anaheim 2014. That's the tournament with that amazing crew battle, East versus West, if you guys remember. They had a group stage, and then they had like a regular tournament which qualified into the group stage. It was a really interesting event format. I'm never a fan of group stages, like almost at all anymore. I used to be to some degree, but I just think that the tiebreakers are really unfair, and it's I can't really go back to justifying them anymore. But it's cool to see more matches, and that's awesome. I think that for my money, I think consequential matches matter more than more matches, right? Like, I really hate when players play basically what are meaningless matches in those separate formats. But I do see the benefit. The point in general is floating adds to the value of your content. It does. You can run the later parts of the bracket earlier because of floating. So there is a benefit there. And as long as you make it fair by having a really, really cohesive ranking system, then it's okay. But we are far from a cohesive ranking system, so we can't implement it yet. That's just the truth.
Have you ever thought about what the system would look like?
Yes. Yes.
And I can't. We won't go into nitty gritty details, but I just feel like I can't think of a single system that would not leave a large group of people unhappy.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think you could.
Well, what do you think about the MLG one?
I think the MLG one. I mean, they just invited No, they had qualifiers, right?
They had a point system where it was similar to what Capcom Pro Tour is right now. Like, you either like win an event or a larger event, and you automatically qualify, or you get points. And
so Capcom Pro Tour has positives and negatives to how they do. I think how they do their system. I think they've got core problems too. I know a lot about how it runs because Twitch is a partner of Capcom Pro Tour, and I help advise and consult in a lot of its processes. So I think they're well aware of some of the pros and cons of their system. What they do really well is they capture the whole. They cast a wide net on the entire ecosystem, and I think that's really valuable. And that's really good. But in many ways, they have, in my opinion, too many events, right? Like they have so many rankings and so many premieres that points can often be a value of how many events you go to and not just how well you do. So, like, there's a lot of ways that can go, right? But I think that for Smash, there are plenty of fair systems we can make for it. At least fair enough. Fair enough that it's better than what we got right now.
Yeah.
Ultimately, better than what we got right now and whatever would happen, it would be a step up, right? And it would be welcomed, and everyone would know that the first iteration is probably not perfect, but either way, it's less impactful without a lot of infrastructural changes.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hopefully something gets done soon.
Jumpus asks, question for Blur, how do invitational events like Five Gods get money for stuff? Couldn't they make more if they let anyone enter the tourney and have fees? Jumpus, a lot of esports events lose money. That's really the answer. Now, that's okay, because let's say the event is a part of a greater initiative, like let's say South by Southwest. It's a massive event, right? So they're willing to lose money on a tournament that is generally good for their expo, but the expo itself is a massive multi-million-dollar thing, so things can get funded that way, right? But just to take a step back, if you're just looking at the project on its own, it's not necessarily a profitable entity. And most of esports isn't, right? Like, there's investments being made all over the place that are not good business models. I think it'd be hard. I'd be hard pressed to think that E-League, for example, that's running right now for CS:GO. They have one sponsor in Arby's. Like how? There's no way that that entire studio is being paid for that, and that prize pool is being paid for by Arby's. It's not. It's not happening, right? So a ton of it's an investment. A lot of it's land grabbing. A lot of it's hey worrying about growth, and you see that reflected on the smaller scale on the Smash community because it's not like our events are making much money or if any at all. Many of them go negative.
I think a lot of them are going grossly negative.
A lot of them are going grossly negative, and people are just trying to grow a brand that they hope will have value years in the future. So yeah, that's the state of the industry.
It does make me a little nervous. Like I'm glad I'm not in the TOing business, and I'm in my little niche of writing on ESPN and Yahoo, and making a little bit of money. But I'm terribly worried because the numbers all indicate. You can read whatever report you have on esports, but it's like I'm worried that there's that possibility that we all over speculated and we all crash and burn, and the infrastructure just like collapses on itself. And I hope that does not happen.
Yeah, that could happen. That could happen. It could not happen, dude. The way America works with this stuff is weird, right? Like if we're saying esports, but it's a microcosm of the whole country. The whole country is like a built on negative, right? Like everything is built on negative. Almost every company you see, is talking about growth and all that. So I mean, that's a whole different economic discussion. But yeah, a lot of these events aren't making money, guys, and they're part of a bigger company that's willing to take risks, or they have somebody who's willing to finance it. Blah blah blah. But yeah, don't get it twisted. Yeah. They're not. They might have many revenue streams that can help them, but on the whole, yeah, many of them don't make money.
We're a long way from the notion that TOs are just swimming in gold Scrooge McDuck pools.
No, the opposite. The ones that are, if you see a TO and they're just a regular dude, as in they're just a Smash homie, they're probably like somehow trying to manage a 150K budget that's like way in over their heads. And by the way, if no one shows up, they're bankrupt. That's like literally what's happening. So you guys know, full transparency, that's the stakes for these TOs. Don't show up and their life is over.
Anyway, I can't think of any other prominent topics, right? I mean, I guess if we were to sum up the TLDR, burnout, greatly exaggerated in the sense of too many events. We think that they can honestly go to more, and compared to other esports, they should probably. We can do other things other than floating that can optimize the schedules and improve all the players' experience, including the top players, is I think the notion that we get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an important point. It's one of, I think, the low-hanging fruits, like you said, of the community, and it's important to identify those. It is not one of the core problems we have right now, but it is important to think of. So
yeah. Should we move on to questions? I can't think of any prominent topics right now. I mean,
let's just go to the viewer questions. We have so many. We got like.
Actually, before we go there, can I actually use the restroom?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll be right back.
I'll talk to chat.
You can put in work on the chat right now.
All right. So, Freya says, "Did the ROM series end because Melee was revived?" Sure, bro. It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? It's just they then went and posted like 8 other ROMs. What is it, 7 other ROMs? What's the last one? Dude, ROM numbering is hard to keep up with. Since then, because Melee was revived well after that time, but sure. Blur's tier idea is really good, so good. A lot of us low players have really no goal because it's to reach out. Because it is so out of reach, and the whole idea of trying to get to a higher tier sounds cool. Andre of Wisconsin, thank you. Thank you. It is a good idea. But like I said, those things require technology and require infrastructure. it's a big reason why we're all working on Smash GG so hard. Like I try and spend at least 5 hours of my week with Smash GG and their people. Thankfully, they're within walking distance of the office. They're actually like walking distance my place too. So a lot of that stuff can be opened up, and we can make more proper ranking systems with technology. So Saucy says Club City turned in his form for a sub button. I'll look into it, Saucy's. D1's handling it, but I'll look into it too. Blur, do you have any tips on first-time job interviews? I've only done one job interview in my life, and I got it. But what I would say is I went in and basically just laid out what I was going to do for like the first month, 6 months, year, 3-year plan. Like literally, I said, instead of going in and asking what they wanted me to do, I pretty much told them what I was going to do, and that really worked. Triforce is a legend. He helped make Melee an esport. Okay.
All right, we're gonna go through the list because
let's go through the list. Guys, use Ask FM if you wanna give us questions. But we're gonna go to the questions that were submitted throughout the week, and also any questions that you guys send us in now.
All right, I'm gonna skip the really obnoxious ones, but we did see some decent ones. Let's see, when did I put it up?
Oh, one thing we could talk about before we go to the questions actually is that, hey, Hugs and Lucky got signed.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Shouts
awesome.
to Lucky's Selfless and the Dream Team Hugs.
Yeah, awesome. That is so sick. That makes pretty much the whole top 20 signed now, with few exceptions. I think Drugafox and Hacks and S2J.
Yeah.
He's on my own, but are still unsigned.
Hey,
Everyone
I'm
else
paying his flight to. I'm paying out of pocket for his flight to CEO.
What a nice guy.
So that I think he might have some stuff. So hopefully, sooner than later.
No spoilers, Caparino.
But hopefully, he does get something soon and locked in. I mean, because technically every top player is in talks for what's worth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't spoiled anything.
My short list. I keep like a little list of players that I'd like to see sponsored. I want to get sponsored.
Duck.
My short list is now S2J and Duck. Yeah, they're the next two.
Okay.
And all right, and one more, but he might be. Yeah. Anyway, so I think those are two of the main guys right now.
All right. So it's kind of a potpourri, and I wish I split them up thematically. Why do most former top players who were retired for a while struggle really hard to get close to the level they used to be on?
The question is, why do they?
Yeah.
Because they're not working very hard.
There you go.
That's it. Seriously, they're not. They'll admit it. I think, age in esports is weird. Like, I think everyone leans on the idea, like the old Brood War days, which said, after the age of 22, you're pretty much done. Like the idea that age matters that significantly because of reaction times. I've never really believed in that. I think it's mostly from my casual observation that the younger guys just have so much more energy that they practice like so much harder than the older guys, but like an extreme amount, that I almost feel like the older guys just have a struggle keeping up with the metagame and the work ethic of the younger guys who are just so fresh. Like once you're 10 years into the game and you've been playing for a long time, it's so much harder to maintain that level of work ethic. When you already know everyone around you already thinks you're a legend, you already have a ton of great results that you're working. It feels like you're working for less, like in terms of long-term gain.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you've just played a lot of the game, and playing for 10 hours a day can be hard. Like it's just hard to get up and do that. And this is why for athletes, I really respect it when the old guys do well, because I think it's super, super impressive.
And to add, I think, because even if you look, I mean, if we're going to talk about a select group of people that are, presumably around the 07 to 09 era that, kind of came back in 14, like a lot of the game has evolved, and a lot of people still like from the older generations carry these notions. Some are good, but some are so adamantly stubborn that this is like the right because it's ingrained in them from being at top level that there are certain things that they believe is the right thing to do, and because it's so ingrained, it's so hard to unlearn. And you see that Ken's a prime example where side B in certain situations are just not good.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, he could take that out. He's a smart enough guy. Andre Wisconsin, matter of fact, says Ken works very hard, but he's still not close to where he was at all. What Ken are you watching? He does not work
He
very
does
hard.
not work very hard.
In fact, I would argue he doesn't work at all. He's not working on getting better at all. Like not even 1%.
I feel like Chillin like does more work in Mario Sunshine than actual Melee.
Yeah, and Chu literally barely works for it. So a lot of them, they're just naturally good at the game. They've been playing for a long time. They're able to do well, but they're not treating it like sometimes you see in professional sports. Where the older player is still at the gym, at like age 35, willing to go all out, because he's got his team on his back. It's not the same. Not yet, at least. They have a hard time going for that.
All right. What do you think about the fast fallers versus non-fast fallers crew battle?
If we did that, I think that who would win? Probably the non-fast fallers. Off the top of my head, they have Armada and HBox. Sounds pretty good.
Mewtwo King FD.
Man, Mewtwo King FD. Yeah, they'd win. They'd win pretty hard, I think. But the fast fallers do all right. I mean, what do they get? They get Leffen, Mango,
Wes, Zach, Lucky, Silent Wolf, SCJ, Wizzy, Dark Fox, Ice.
Yeah, that's really good. It'd be even.
I think it's going to be close, but then you get crew battle jitters, and you only get one match. SDs. I just feel like a Mewtwo King on FD is really strong, and you don't really have a counter pick on Mewtwo King on FD.
Plus, you have like Ice Climbers.
Yeah.
You put like Wobbles in there, man. It's pretty crazy.
I feel like the world's counter picks are way stronger than the fast fallers counter picks.
Yeah. So the floaties probably win, but it'd be interesting, right?
Yeah. But do you think Foxes will start doing the second up air consistently?
I think until someone does it, no one's going to do it. It's the truth. That sounds silly, but it's one of those techs that we've known now for so long. We all know, like, all the top players, especially the top Fox players, have known the second hit up air is just better, and none of them have really worked on it. So I don't see that changing unless it comes out maybe from the mid-level. That's how it often happens. Like some mid-level player just starts doing it every time, and then a top player looks at them, they're like, "Oh, I should do that," and then they learn it that way. So I'd expect to happen, but there's no timeline on this stuff, right? It's just like until a player does it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it will happen one day, I think.
I'd probably say like maybe by the end of the year, at the earliest point, being optimistic. Most likely, I don't know, probably like a year from now. Depends on what we define as consistent. Like 9 out of 10 times, probably not for a while.
Yeah, but I mean, how can we give a timeline on that? Because, like, for example, shield dropping could have been invented 4 years before it actually happened, right? Like, it's not like there was anything holding us back from learning it. We knew the basic game mechanic since like Super Doodle Man, but like it took guys like Axe and Sung and Okami who really started abusing it for everyone to be like, okay, seriously, why haven't we learned this yet?
Yeah.
And then we did it. But I think that could have also happened a few years later. Like, what if those players didn't really try to push it at the time, and it would have happened a little bit later? It'll probably happen at some point, but it's the timing is all dependent on the innovators.
All right, this one's a fun question. Who would win, your Marth or my Fox?
I mean, it's my Marth.
No, my Fox.
Dude, don't do that. Like you know what my Marth is to your Fox. So just
You mean the last time I came to Twitch and like I won every match and included a 3-stock, many 3-stocks?
that did not happen.
I don't
Why?
know.
Why? Like, what are you doing here? Are you lying to people? What's the point?
Well, I guess to be fair, it was a while back, and you were in prime blur form,
Oh my
so
god.
maybe I concede to you.
Oh my god. Tafo, I'm better than you. I'm better. I beat your Sheik. Let's be real.
Not in a set.
I mean, that's up to interpretation. I hate you, dude. Who gave that? Did you write your own Ask FM? I know that's possible.
I don't know. Just the Tafel Fox has fans.
No, it doesn't. Literally, I don't know if people even knew about the Tefo Fox.
No, the Tafel Fox is the thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Why would it be a thing?
It's amazing. It's so like unorthodox that it piques the curiosity of why it wins.
Can we stop? Can we move on from this? Is supposed to be a high level melee
Okay,
talk
fine.
show.
On the greatest of all time rankings, how many players featured in the Smash documentary would you rank Chudat above?
Isaiah and Korean DJ. No, the rest no. Just Isaiah and Korean DJ. He is not above Azen. He's not above PC. He's not above Mango. He's not above Ken. He is above Isaiah and Korean DJ in the rankings.
Okay.
Pretty clearly. Do you disagree? Do you agree on that?
I'm a little bit bullish on Azen, but I'll give it to Azen right now.
Really? I mean, I think Azen's legacy is pretty good comparative to Chu still. Like Chu has longevity, but
it depends on how, because like Azen took a lot of breaks even in his hiatus, so, or even in his peak, so it kind of is like whether you value peak or longevity. I'm inclined to be more peak oriented, so I'll give it to Azen right now, but it's something that I want to do more research on.
yeah, Chu's longevity is really impressive. Getting a top 8 like a decade out of your prime is like unheard of. It's actually not happened other than him, right? Like,
yeah,
no one else has been able to accomplish that kind of longevity. It's me. I guess Mewtwo is close. He's been playing for so long now because his prime was 07 and now we're in 2016. So
yeah.
I guess Mewtwo will do it too.
Is Peak Mango actually the best player ever, or do we simply perceive it that way because he dips much lower than more consistent players?
I think he was playing at peak form at Genesis, to be honest. Genesis 3. I think Armada is just that good, dude.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why Armada peak would be any lesser than Mango. I think it's just that Mango peak is so different than his average or his low, I should say. And Armada peak is only like 10% better than his average, but it's still Armada.
Yeah.
So that might just be better.
I think consistency is highly underrated because, like, peak, what does that even mean? Because, like, I can shoot a 70, like a half court shot and make it, right?
Yeah.
And does that make magically my peak better than someone else that can make 3-pointers more regularly? And so I don't really buy the peak. I think Armada, is overall better. Mango, admits to that as well. And we both value consistency.
Yeah. I think Armada peak is at the moment probably the best Smasher we've seen yet. But that's because right now Armada's winning tournaments, right? So maybe in 6 months, if let's say Leffen keeps winning for 6 months, maybe it'll be Leffen peak. Maybe if Hungerbox, improves and keeps going, it'll be HBox peak. I don't know, but I still think that the Armada we saw at Genesis might be the best Smasher we've seen yet.
Yeah. Questions for Commentator's Curse. Specifically, what is the least double negative here. What is the least explored form of content creation you guys think people should try to test out or do more?
Oh wow. Okay, that's a good question. Forms of content creation that I don't think are done enough. So when people are doing like documentary style format stuff, and this is what I liked about 60 Frames, they did an expose that basically tried to answer the core question of why we play instead of highlighting a specific player. I think another thing that we could do is answer that same question from an organizer perspective, which is why does someone host an event? We just describe all the reasons not to and why it could be so hard, and what makes that grassroots engine work. And I think that's a particularly fascinating part about Smash and esports in general. Like, I think there's so many misconceptions from the general populace of esports fandom of how it works. So I'd love to see more on that. I think there's been a few esports industry documentaries but they've been really bad. I'm just gonna be honest. And I think that would be good. I'd like to see that be made to a great degree. I'd also like to see um, TOs and commentators put more content out there in terms of tutorials of like how to commentate or how to TO. I know I'm one of the people who could very easily do this. I just haven't really put aside the time for it. But I think that there's a lot of, based on how we are as a community, we're going to have to lean on basically mid-tier and low-tier commentators to some degree. We can't fly out our top tier of commentators every time. And there's always a new crop of TOs popping up, and they need to have a little bit more standardization. So a little bit more how-to on that. That'd be nice. Other content I'd like to see. Normally I'd say tutorial videos, but SSBM tutorials have been so good that I think that they've got it. Like, they're so good.
Yeah.
SSBM tutorials, like, everyone give SSBM tutorials some credit. Like, that stuff is amazing. That channel is amazing. I love what Kira and Kellen are doing for the community. It's absolutely sick. So yeah, stuff like that. I think that'd be good. Taff, do you have any thoughts?
I think in general, I think I can't really say what exactly is underexplored. Just the fact that in general we are unexplored, and I think there's just so much room to emerge. Like if you committed yourself to a year of content focusing on something, like you could probably break through as long as you're consistent and you pivot in the right ways and it's like helpful. And I think my issue is that people think they're gonna get 100,000 views putting out 2 videos, and then they give up when that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think what we really need are just people that aren't for that aren't going to get easily jaded and are going to keep pushing through and just create a consistent series. And that's why like SSBM tutorials is so good, right? They kept at it and they're still doing it. And I still think like even if a channel just did 30-second 15-second commercial videos on what a wave dash is or what a shield drop is, and Gimmer could play it on stream would be, awesome. Yeah. Like little things like that as long as you are consistent on it, I think are good. And I just feel like people give up too easily.
Yeah, there's a lot of room there. I also think that if the people making content just reached out to leaders, they'd get a lot more they get a lot more support than they think they would.
Yeah, I mean, I retweet Pikachu every time he asks me to retweet. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I should retweet it.
Yeah, so do I. And so do that. If your stuff's good and the people like it, they will shout it out as well. Like half of my Twitter is shouting out links of like good stuff I saw for Smash, just because I like to give people props for that. For sure, I think that also for editors, let's say you come up with a good idea. And you want to make a highlight reel or you want to make a intro video, just make a sample for us to see, and then we might want more, or we want more of that type of content. Another one that's good is Smash Academy. If you watch Super Smash Academy's video with, I think those videos are really good. So, a lot of different places to take inspiration from. I think it's most important to just get it out there and do what you're interested in and what like really sticks.
Yeah. I mean, and being like really willing to like flop and fail and pivot is like the most important thing. I mean, I found my niche like over time, and my article sucked. Crimson Blur made an 18-minute video on finding CRTs, and he learned from that.
Yeah, dude, I'll never do that again. I learned that I'm not very good at video editing. That's where I learned that.
But we learned that that's not like short and succinct in certain aspects is good. So we're always learning.
Yep.
How do we feel about the Glyco rankings that were put together by Mobius? To give context, it's the one that we put up on Melee Autonomy not too long ago. Did you get a chance to look at that?
They didn't look bad, but I don't think any formula-based ranking is very inspiring. You can't make an aspirational goal to a formula. You just can't. So, like, they're good for a certain purpose. They're good for stat heads to be like, hey, this is why X player is better than this player. Look at this formula I made, and this proves that somehow, right? And that's fun, you know, but it doesn't. It's not a standings, right? Standings. Let's say you look at a regular sport. Standings are done through results and results only, right? If you win in basketball, you get a win on your win column. That's it. That's your reward. It's very definite, and as a player, you have control over that. Whereas a formula, it's like, hey, if you just change this coefficient here, I'm now the best player. What's up? You know,
Yeah.
like, and that's just not very aspirational for people. So I think it's cool. I think it serves its purpose. People should check it out, and maybe that'll help them get some insight into how people have been performing. But it's literally for that purpose and that purpose entirely.
I think my issue is, once again, similar to you, the implications that people kind of jump to with it. And so it's like, if a formula tells you that Drug Fox is number 12, then they're going to automatically say, oh, Drug Fox is the number 12 best player in skill. And you kind of just get what you get out of it. I think the only problem I have with the computing aspects of it is that I think the frame window is too long, but there isn't really a substitute for it, because he's adding in a year worth of events, including that, because then the variance is too high. But I mentioned this earlier before you were on, Crimson, that this Drug Fox's win against, performance at Evo last year really even matter when I look at right now and who I would seed, in order for CEO.
Right. And I think that just if you're talking about on a storyline aspect, like, let's say for Drug Fox, he wants to get seated for CEO. For him to just figure out to reverse engineer the ELO possibility for him to get that ranking is like impossible for him, right? He just be like, what do I have to do? So I have to get minimum of 17th, 13th, and then 17th again for me to make that, assuming that other people don't perform better than average, like it just doesn't work from that perspective. Like, a player needs to have some clearly defined boundaries of what they need to do and how they need to get better, and what to achieve goals and concrete goals that we can then apply to the real world.
Yeah. And so it's nice to look as a reference point to see if we're really off base, and maybe we get some insights to it. But I don't like people running with it as if it's the gospel just because it's a numbers-based formula.
Yeah, and by the way, there's a lot of formulas, and they all think they're the best. You can use TrueScroll, you can use ELO, you can use Glico. There's a lot of different ways to calculate this, and they all end up with different people on the rankings, right? Like at different spots. And if you make those things matter, make those that distinction matter, then people will naturally criticize the formula. And that's just the cause and effect of it.
I feel like being able to beat Armada's Peach or the new Hungry Box now indicates that you have a higher level neutral game than even some of the top 10 players. Agree or disagree?
Have a new level. Can you repeat that last half?
So basically, if you can beat Armada's Peach or Hungry Box right now, then this guy is saying that you have a higher level neutral game than some of the top 10 level players.
if you can beat Armada Peach or Hungry Box, you are a top 10 level player.
I can't think of a counterexample to that where like that's not applicable.
You can beat the top 2 players in the world. Like, yeah.
And we're not just talking. We're gonna take the assumption that it means set and not just a match.
If you take that means you're extraordinarily good at this game because you might be best in the world. That's you can beat Armada and Hungry Box. Yeah, you're really good. I agree. Not really. Maybe I just don't understand the question.
I don't understand it. I'm just gonna say yes by default if you can do that because
you're really good at the game. If
you're really good at the game.
We'll say yes.
Dude, playing Armada or Hungry Box, because I got to play both of them at Summit. Like they do not give you anything for free. Like you literally have to trick them in many different ways and not give up anything to like even land a hit on these guys. Like if you can do that consistently and not die, then you are a phenomenal player. And that's my closing thought.
I think what they might be trying to say is you can't gimmick your way to being Armada and Hungry Box, and I agree to that.
Yeah.
What they're trying to say is you have to have a really good neutral game to beat Armada and Hungry Box, and I agree to that. So these are true statements. So.
What do we think about the Fox Falco matchup?
Oh man. Can you go first, actually? Because I've gone back and forth on this over.
Okay, so I think this is where human execution and like theory come in. I think in theory, Fox would win, but the amount of the precision you need to earn hits without getting spot dodge shined, getting crotch canceled into shine, and getting it into a bunch of things that lead into an extended combo are like very unforgiving for Fox in many aspects. So I do think that Fox has a lot of control, and I do think that the Fox and Falco are both playing well, that Fox wins. But given that Foxes can slightly mess up a tech chase and get shine for 60, I think it's pretty much close to 50-50. And the fact that Falco can capitalize off these small mistakes so heavily is what makes it even.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I don't even know if that's true. I think people give Optimal Fox way too much credit. I mean, he's good, but Optimal anything is ridiculous, right? Falco has a great controlling game. And I think that you are right in saying that some of the micro situational stuff that Falcon can get hits off of are really absurd, and Fox can sometimes feel like he just walked into a combo, and and that could be frustrating as a player. So I don't like. It's one of those matchups that it's just so complex that I don't know if we'll ever know, and whether it's imbalanced or not. It's just so complex and so deep that the better player always wins.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's one of those situations where it's like even if when we devolve we evolve to the greatest level of the metagame, right? And we discover that, hey, by the way, Fox beats Falco or Falco beats Fox. Once you implement this perfect player who does all this right, it just takes so much to get there that in the meantime it's just going to be even.
Yeah. So I guess like for Fox Falco, like I think there's enough decision making within 4 stocks in a best of 5 that you have control of your destiny is I think my conclusion in that.
Yeah, like there's just so many decisions there that the better player is just going to win.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of questions on panels and rankings. I'll skip some, but I'll read this one. Is there any chance Melee could adopt the BCS-like format, which integrates an ATP-style point system? Everybody starts with the points they got on the Myome rankings, and then they earn points in tournaments, and after a while, the actual results will outweigh the original opinionated ranks.
I think that's a good suggestion. I think ATP doesn't work for us as cleanly. I also think that like there's always. I think that for storylining, ATP is really bad. That's always been my opinion. I think it's just it values the quantity too much. I think I'd like to limit the pool. But yeah, It's one of those the ones that immediately come to mind of, hey, this is a system that works for a community that years ago was similar to Smash, right? And was as disparate and different, and everyone was so far apart in tennis's early days. I think it's important when discussing this topic to also draw on sports history. I've done a lot of reading on sports history, and to really think this stuff through. And I think that tennis has one of the most congruent communities and congruent histories. So, yeah, ATP is one way to do it. I think there's weaknesses to it. I think they've learned those weaknesses, but are stuck to it the way they are. The sad thing is that once you get to a certain point in a sports life cycle, you pretty much have to stay to your system because your storylines just get destroyed if you do anything else, right? You don't want Federer playing in a different system than than Agassi did, right? Like it's just, you don't want to go that drastically change. You can't just change your league format because it just ruins the statistical backbone that you build your stories on. And you can't say stuff like, oh, Jordan won 6 championships, but Duncan's only won 5. If all of a sudden the whole championship format is different, right?
Yeah.
So that matters a lot. So as sports get older, they get more conservative with their changes. For changes that we make really fast and Smash for right now, it's a huge hesitance in a more mature sport. So we wouldn't stand for having an East-West split like the NBA does, right? Like we would see that as a problem. We just change it. But for them, they're like, dude, we've been doing East-West for ever, right? And do we really want a system which changes how hard a round one matchup is, or changes how what it means to get into the playoffs so drastically that it affects what literally everything. It affects what the playoffs are. So yeah, they have different things to weigh.
Yeah, I guess my worry coincides with yours, right? Because people, are talking about floating, being, alienating. If you have an ATP system, literally the only people that can compete in that and keep up in points are the ones that have large sponsors that can fly them out to every event. You're not going to be able to compete in points if you went to an ATP system, if you were just a random Joe.
Right, and I think that's important too. I think the way Smash is right now, it's important to not only value premier events, like high-level events, it's also to value what's happening underneath that, because Smash is far from the point where you can expect everyone to go to every major, and because they currently don't. Only the top 20 do, right? You talk you go to almost everything like I do. It's pretty much just the main commentators and community figures, plus the top 20 players who are at every single one of these. The rest is a new set of 1,000 people, right? And entirely different people in the room. So if you're going to make a true ranking system, you at least for Smash right now, you have to work a little bit differently than that.
Yeah, and
until we get more people sponsored.
Yeah. And sponsors may not even, see the justification to fly. Hungry Box from time to time has trouble getting Team Liquid, right, to get them out to certain events, from what I've heard. And that's because the prize pools don't justify it. So if a team says they look at the planning of it and they see that player X has to go to 18 events, flights, hotels, and the prize pool doesn't justify it, then top players that are even sponsored by these big teams are going to have to find ways to fund themselves to go to these events. And so it's a really messy structure that if the top players that are sponsored to go to events need this, then imagine the top 50 level players that Mike Hayes that struggle to even get to CEO because of funds.
Right. And realistically, if we're being honest, even 2 years from now, I don't expect people outside the top 50 to be sponsored, right? There will come a point where, because of how individual sponsorships are valued in the ecosystem right now, that there comes a ranking where you're just giving almost next to no value to your sponsor, right? If you're ranked number 55, you might not actually ever be on stream for a tournament match, right? Which is a byproduct of us having a 1v1 game, right? We're gonna end up being top heavy in terms of population, right? And so like a game that's 5v5, all 5 people on the team will be sponsored, right? And therefore, sure, let's say 30 teams are sponsored in that ecosystem. That's 5 times 30. That's 150 people that can get sponsored. For Smash, it's not like that because it's a 1v1 game. Let's say the top 50 gets sponsored, and that'll be like it, unless something crazy happens and we start having much more money into the scene, and there's a lot more going on there. That means naturally, if you're going to put value into being 55th on the ranking, as I think you should, right? I think it shouldn't just be a ranking for the top 50.
Yeah.
Then you have to accommodate them as well.
So that's tough. I don't really like these broad questions. What is the biggest thing that Melee is lacking compared to other esports?
Oh boy, a lot.
We won't say the biggest thing, but we'll say one thing because we can go into an all-night discussion on this.
So I don't like to use the word lacking, but because it's been good for us in many ways.
Okay, let's rephrase it. What's one thing we wish we had?
Okay, so let me finish the point. Then I wouldn't say it's lacking, and I wouldn't say I wish we had it anymore. But other esports have really deep publisher developer support, and we don't. And that's like an obvious difference, right? I don't think we're lacking in it. I think it's made us stronger over time, and it's made something really beautiful because of it. And I think we would very much, we could potentially be dead if we had relied on marketing dollars. You're not going to rely on marketing dollars 15 years after the game release. That's just not going to happen, right? So,
yeah.
In many ways, that's been a blessing. So, but when you naturally need the license holder to carry some weight in order to do big things, so that is an important factor. But I don't think that's the answer to that question for me. One thing I wish we had is I wish Melee was widely distributed to more regions when it first came out. I wish China didn't have a ban on console games when Melee first came out. I wish Korea sold Melee on its shelves, when it first came out. These sort of things are really important long term, right? Like we're gonna really try to push for international growth. At least I will, but it's an uphill battle long term because they never even played the game. Like literally, they just never really played the game. So that's one of the biggest things to me. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things. It is a very broad question. I also wish we had an easier form of capture. Like if we were on PC, that would really help, right? You have to have like a capture card that can take a composite or component signal, and those are starting to go away. So for streaming, that can be really difficult. You have to have a lot of equipment to do it right now, compared to other games. That's becoming more and more important as making content is more important. I wish. There's a lot of things. Tafel, you give an answer. Yo, Tafel?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah. I mean, if I were to think, it's really because the first thing that comes to mind is the licensing thing, right? But if I were to say something else, I would really love if there was like an API.
Yeah, that would really help if we can get data from the game easier and then pull stats from it.
Like an API and a good replay system like what Dota 2 has.
Yeah, like Dota TV. If our game was free to play and had microtransactions, that would help us a lot, obviously, because then we can continue monetizing our game and feed more money back into the ecosystem. Have like a real financial model backing to it. That would mean a lot. It would mean a lot if are if our population wasn't always just looking to make do. I think this is a more cultural thing, but we still don't have we have everyone again working separately, and they not no one's too entrepreneurial with it, and everyone's just trying to host one tournament and do one thing and then do nothing else for like the next year. It's really hard to build upon what we're doing because of that, and it makes sense because no one's doing it. Most people aren't doing it full time. Don't really have any goals with their orgs. No one has a 5 to 10 year plan with their org. So that sucks. I wish the esports teams and management did more for our players than just a paycheck.
They're like stepdads, man.
They're like stepdads. They're absent fathers for sure. But I mean, we'll take the paycheck. We're not.
We'll take the child support.
We'll definitely take the child support. We'll take it. But for the most part, we don't get that much attention. So there's that. There's so much that I wish and I want to improve on. Yeah. So.
Why is floating a problem Genesis 3 show that it works? I mean, I think we summed it up as we don't really have a firm enough, fair system that everybody knows that could determine who gets floated and who doesn't.
Yeah. That's the main thing.
Can we make a show that like this with Armada, Left, and Hungrybox as guests directly talk about the problems with the players that are the most affected, plus outspoken about it? I mean, it's a possibility. It's just Armada and Leffen are in Sweden, and I
time zones. Yeah, maybe we could get them on. It's this freaking Skype show.
We were supposed to have a guest on today, but I'm guessing he's still eating.
That's funny.
I'm really sad faced about it.
It's chill.
To give you guys context, it was supposed to be Mango.
Yeah, we could have Mango.
All right. Mango, gives a fair perspective, and I heard that he talked about it today on his stream.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to think about all angles for sure.
All right. What are your thoughts on the Pika Falcon matchup? Axe's only losing record to a Falcon I could find was Gravy. He was positive against Hack's Falcon and has been dominating SCJ Wizrobe and None. Wizrobe has lost to Pikachu and None to Anther and DJ Nintendo's Pikachu.
I think Pikachu beats Falcon, but I have a really high opinion of Pikachu. I think that Falcon's moves come out too slow to truly contest the neutral air. Pika's Nair's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the up air juggles and the chain grabs are really devastating. Plus, the edge guarding by Pikachu is some of the strongest in the game. Meanwhile, Falcon doesn't have that on the other side. His speed advantage is not much of an advantage at all because Pikachu's very fast himself. So yeah, I think Pikachu beats Falcon.
Nice. So I think I agree, and I think that just when you look at a best of 5 set, I know Gravy did it, but most Falcons have to deal with both the FOD and Final Destination, which I think is a huge handicap to Falcon.
Yeah. So. Dude, Freya says best approach in the game. Don't forget. Yeah, Freya ask. Neutral air is amazing. I don't know. Do you think it's wrong to say that Pikachu's neutral air is arguably the best approach in the game? It's like, what else is? Like, what else could be?
I like the Fox's neutral air.
No, that's definitely not like. If anything, it's Fox's running shine. I think, or one of the grabs.
Well, it's so fast that's always going to be threatening, right? And that's the appeal of.
Yeah, and isn't Pikachu's Nair similarly threatening, but like better in most ways? Like it's lasts longer. It's like isn't it like frame 3 to 25 and it ends and it has like no landing lag, like barely any landing. Pichu's Nair is the only one that can be argued, I guess, because Pichu's Nair has even less landing lag, and if he auto cancel, he has 2 frames of lag on like every other character's 4 frames. Like so you can argue Pichu's Nair, I guess. But yeah, Fox's running Shine has a good argument. I think Fox's initial dash is so long that it doesn't cover enough space, and it doesn't have that much range, obviously. So there's that. Maybe you can argue like Mars running down tilt or one of the grabs. But yeah, Pika Nair, man.
All right, Mango said 5 minutes. I mean, that's fair. I mean, is Pikachu's Nair or Fox's Nair? I can kind of see it. I guess everything else about Fox that makes the amount of Fox options is what makes Nair slightly more threatening. But I guess in a vacuum, I could see why Pikachu's Nair is better than Fox's Nair.
So this is a discussion that comes up because after like this came up, I think it was at PAX commentary. Webb's giving me shit because I said, yeah, Pikachu has, he said that Pikachu has really bad approaches, right? And I was like, okay, that's just not true because Pikachu's Nair and D-Tilt are like really good, and Pikachu's Nair is like actually one of the best and if not the best, right? And I think it's probably the best, if not for Pikachu's Nair, maybe. But and he was really against it. Do you agree that the statement that Pikachu has bad approaches is just wrong? Like that.
Wait, who says Pikachu has bad
Webbs? And he was hating on me.
I mean, I think my issue with Pikachu is that he has good approaches and he can get in on characters like Marth and but like
literally the best.
The issue is not that. It's as much as like you do like 10 hits and then you realize that you think you did like 90 damage and then you realize you did like 25.
Yeah, but you got positional advantage. It's all good, baby. I think Pikachu's disadvantages are like the walling moves, right? Like you play against Peach and you really need a ranged move and you don't got it. So that really, she can struggle there against like a character like Jigglypuff when your range is like you have great speed and stuff, but having that big of a range disadvantage when the character goes outside of your one really good move like Neutral Air can be really tough. So like those are disadvantages and those are things to talk about, but overall the character doesn't have bad approaches.
Yeah. Come on. I mean, he has good approaches. I just think there's other things that like make Pikachu not top tier.
No, Pikachu's really good. Okay, look, I'm a crazy.
I mean, I think crotch canceling hurts Pikachu a lot, right?
No.
What?
Press A on their body. Press A on their body. Like everyone does Nair wrong. Like even every Pikachu just jumps with like a short hop and presses A like immediately instead of doing the different timings you can do with Nair. If you press like the beginning hitbox of Nair is so much stronger than the last hitbox. And so they get crouch canceled to like forever % because they're doing a Nair drifting in hella early, and it's like you can just press A on their body. Come on, man.
I'll have to see it. Maybe, I mean, you probably know Pikachu better than I do. But I don't know. I just think that crotch canceling, like, I think it's such a strong tool against Pikachu's Nair that it's not. It's good at closing space and it's pretty threatening, but I don't think it's as perfect as you make it seem like.
Oh, I'm not saying it's perfect. Like, dude, yeah, crouch canceling does do stuff. I'm just saying that it's not. It's like crouch canceling does stuff against Fox's Nair too, but you know what they do? They press A on the body. Like that, Foxes very often don't press the A button until they're like they jump in and then they press A. They don't just jump, press A right when they short hop. You know.
All right, we're gonna move on from that. Can you describe your average workday from waking up to going to bed at Tafo, at Blur, and Guest?
All right, you go first.
All right. I think I've explained it a lot. I wake up at 5:30, get ready for work, and then I'm at work at 6:30. And my workday is kind of sporadic. Sometimes, I'm walking around lab, and I'm like waiting on engineers to discuss things, and so that's the time where I can go on Twitter and social media, or I'm programming, or I'm waiting for people to give me stuff. So looking at hardware / programming, and then I go. 4 o'clock is when I leave, so either I go to the gym or the Cairo, depending on what day of the week it is, and then after that I go eat, and then I do Smash content work from like 6-ish to 10, 11-ish, and then I go home and sleep.
I wake up at about 9-ish, check some emails, take a shower, just, gradually start walking to work whenever I kind of feel like it. Get to work at somewhere between 10 to 10:30 to 10:30, 11, usually. Sometimes later, sometimes earlier. And then I go to work, and I guess what I do at work in general is a ton of meetings and working with meetings with community level people, with TOs, with industry people, sponsors, whatever, to help and try to make big things happen. And eat at 12, do more of that work stuff, and then I pretty much stay in the office until really late. Mostly because the office is more fun to me than my apartment, and I stay usually until like 9 or 10 or 11, and then I go home and I sleep and I do it again. And then on the weekends I'm at events. So that's pretty much it.
Living the life.
Yep. And then at like 6 p.m. I also eat dinner at Twitch. So, and Nodai says my job is just to watch Pikachu VODs. You're goddamn Nodai. You're right, Nodai, and your money helps pay for that. Thank you for watching ads on Twitch.
So Pokemon Sun and Moon are coming out, and Blur needs to do the Nintendo suck up to promote that game while keeping Melee alive. So if you could take any move from Melee and somehow apply it in real life, which one would you choose? To give some context, like Falcon Punch or Mewtwo King's Teleport or growing big with Mario.
You just got it right there, Mewtwo's Teleport. If I could teleport in real life, that'd be amazing.
I would love anybody's double jump.
No, why?
Double jumping, I would take Puff's jumps.
You could great. You go on an elevator. Why do you need to go from to jump on top of a building or something?
But imagine me playing basketball.
Teleporting. Yeah, imagine you playing basketball if you could teleport.
But you can only go certain distances, and then you become predictable.
So